It's time for those papers, and joining us this morning, Huffington Post's political editor, Chris Wimpress, and author and historian, Kate Williams. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
No escaping the Eurozone crisis this morning. You've gone for the Independent, first of all.
Yes, I have. I mean, every front page is leading with the Euro crisis, if it's not leading with hacking. And this morning, I think the Independent's got a particularly interesting cast on it, because the Independent is perhaps the most doomy. It's suggesting that it's not just a Eurozone crisis within it, but it's a problem for everyone. The EU is cutting growth forecasts, drastic reductions from 1.8 down to 0.85 for growth, and it's a disaster for everyone. It's saying it's going to be a real problem for holding the single currency together. So it's full of doom, the Independent, this morning.
Yeah, and all the papers, they seem to be pointing out what's wrong, but none of them are indicating what could be a fix. And this is the worrying thing. I mean, as Geithner said from the US, you've got to get it sorted, but how do they do that?
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the thing. There's lots of doom, but there's no suggestions of how to improve. And even Alistair Darling, who is in the Independent on page 5, is talking for a whole page on how we have to improve things, but can't really give us any suggestions, because obviously we need growth. But how do we have growth if we have austerity cuts?
Yeah.
It seems a bit of a catch-22 situation.
Indeed. We were talking about fixes for the economy. On a domestic front, at least, some of our business leaders suggesting, well, get rid of the 50p tax rate. It's not actually bringing anything in, but it's stopping entrepreneurs.
Well, yes, very interesting here. The Telegraph has got hacking on page 16. The Eurozone is not necessarily the most important story here. We have the big story here in the Telegraph is because what they're suggesting is the 50p tax rate should be abolished, to personal tax allowance should be improved. Business leaders, a letter in the Telegraph here. This is their suggestion of how to increase growth, to cut taxes and improve personal allowances.
Yeah, which, again, many economists might agree with, but it's the political stresses and strains it's going to create within the coalition.
I think George Osborne can't possibly agree to it, because it's going to seem so unpopular at this point in time, and the Liberal Democrats are never going to let it pass. So it's almost impossible, but here's the Telegraph making the suggestion that this is what we need.
Yeah, would that change if the Treasury came out with figures and say, actually, we're not earning anything, we're not making anything from this 50p tax band?
I don't see how it can change, because the political impossibility of this is that wages are not rising nearly half as quickly as inflation is, and there is no outward sign that inflation is going to fall anytime soon. Some economists think it may go down next year, but at the moment it's running at twice the level of wage inflation, and people are feeling really skinned, and you just cannot do it in this scenario.
It's an insult to other people down the bottom of the scale.
It might make economic sense in a kind of esoteric kind of way, but in reality, it would just fly in the face of common sense.
Yeah. And the government's perhaps in enough political trouble as it is. When we look at The Guardian, it's the continuing borders row, and well, it's 14 questions Theresa May wants, or they wanted to answer. I mean, that list might grow, I suppose. That's the problem.
I think it's more like about 21 questions. There's another 7 questions that they want to ask the senior civil servants at the Home Office as well. I think central, what they're going to try to get at is whether the pilot scheme, which was introduced at the UK Border Agency over the summer, was really about intelligence-led checks of passports, or whether it was really about managing a situation where you're cutting staff and you're facing a disaster zone in arrival halls in airports all over the country. And I think the government has issued a fairly robust defence of itself this week, and I think she's done quite well. But the reality is that they are cutting staff. But you cannot say that about immigration, because it's so toxic as an issue. You have to find another explanation for doing what you're doing. And Brodie Clark will be before the MPs on Tuesday, and I think that'll be the first time that we really get his answer to the story. But
do you really think that Theresa May has come out well from this so far?
I think, given the severity of what she's facing, I think she's been kind of all right. I mean, she's seen off quite robust attacks by Labour 3 times this week and has kind of survived. I think, you know, the Home Office is always very difficult, but I think the crucial thing is that within government, they cannot lose Theresa May. They lost Liam Fox 3 weeks ago. They don't want to lose another minister, and I think they will stick by her.
Otherwise, they're going to look accident-prone, aren't they?
They'll look accident-prone, and also, if this is really about cuts, if there are going to be problems in every government department over cuts over the next 3 or 4 years, if the first time it happens that an official starts causing problems for a minister and they cave in and a minister resigns, then you won't have a government left within 6 months. I mean, it'll be happening all over the place.
So no more cat gates.
Yeah.
That's it.
The cat doesn't help.
The cat doesn't help.
Now, we're going to get a bit technical in the Financial Times now, Kate. Gilt yields fall as UK becomes safe haven.
Well, yeah.
Is this good or bad news?
Well, it's very interesting, because a lot of the newspapers are suggesting that what's happening in the Eurozone is bad news. The Guardian suggests it's economic Armageddon. That's what the Treasury is preparing for. the Financial Times has a kind of ray of sunshine here, suggesting that UK government costs, borrowing costs, have fell to historic lows on Thursday because investors are seeking the safety of gilt because of the problems in the Eurozone. So actually suggesting that this is a possibility it might improve things in Britain, which is...
However, I mean, the
very
problem
new
is it
suggestion.
means that savers and pensioners
Yes.
are not going to get anywhere near the sort of returns that they need, although low interest rates as well continuing, which means, I guess, for many mortgage holders, that's going to ease the pain.
Well, we're
So-
keeping rates at a historic
Yeah.
low. I mean, the Bank of England have kept them at a historic low. But as you say, I mean, this is a squeeze on pension funds, a squeeze on savers. So, you know, we're taking from Peter to pay Paul, really. I mean, once more, this is our only ray of sunshine. It's not the strongest ray we could have.
Yeah, and of course the possibility that whatever we do is going to be offset by the rest of Europe. But,
Yes,
you know,
our major trading partner.
even if we're sort of shining beacon, we're in a pretty stormy sea. Right, let's talk about the French and the sun, which you've talked about before, of course. Frenchgypsies setting up illegal camps. It's got everything you can imagine to like the blue touch paper, isn't it?
It's an unholy trinity of, of tabloidness rolled up into one convenient package. I think the fact is that not only are they French, which obviously upsets people, they also seem to be driving Porsches and setting up illegal camps.
Well, yeah, I think there's a BMW, an Audi, and a Porsche four-wheel drive. So again, it's adding a bit of spice to it all as well. isn't
And a
it?
Mercedes.
And a Mercedes as well. Oh, there we are.
All these German cars.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, you know, it ticks every box. I mean, the thing is, people will say, well, if I didn't have to pay for a mortgage or for rent, then I could afford to buy a Porsche. You know, the amount people are spending every year on a mortgage. But I think it's highlighting something that is slightly more serious, which is that after Dale Farm, I know it comes and goes as the years come and go, you know, travelling as an issue comes back again, but I think it is starting to, among a lot of Tory MPs particularly, being seen as something that has to be addressed, because in a lot of Tory seats, it's happening again and again and again, and Dale Farm was just one example of
Anyway,
it.
let's say congratulations to the happy couple and commiserations to the dad. Bernie Ecclestone, a £12 million bill for his daughter's wedding.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, here's another gentleman at the top of a large organisation says he doesn't know what's going on. And, you know, it's been our year of massive weddings this year. You know, Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. Here seems to be the biggest one. Pet Ecclestone's, her wedding apparently cost in excess of £12 million, and poor old Bernie begged his wife and daughter to cut back on the spending, couldn't stop them. They were determined to spend £4,000 a bottle on wine, book the Black Eyed Peas and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And
Well, not just that, and Eric
can't stop
Clapton
Slavica.
playing for the couple's first dance, followed by Rihanna at the engagement. I mean, it's not bad going, is it? You know.
But he could have said no. I mean, it's his money.
He can't say no. He said, you know, he can't stand up to Slavica and Petra when they're determined. He told them, he said, you know, I told them to stop, and my wife just went ahead and spent it anyway. So Bernie has his problems,
So he
even though
had
it
to
might
sit there
not
and
seem
sip
like
his
it.
Chateau Petrus, listening to Eric Clapton. It's a hard life, isn't it?
We struggle on.
Indeed.
The heart bleeds.
Indeed. What's on the back